Hateful Eight is all over, but it is the unfabulous 5 without a win for Ipswich Town. Happy new bloody year, everybody. Welcome to the Blue Monday podcast. Seb, it feels like we've gone from the high of all highs of the greatest year in our history into one of those little moments we have on the podcast where you get the toxic negative people versus the toxic positive people, who I must say are both as bad as each other, but neither will let the other one speak. Well, the truth is somewhere in the middle. It's a bit all over the place to analyse this now, Seb, because we've got the amazing start, the amazing position, the end of the Hateful Eight, which was good, some bad injuries, and some bad form. Let's mix that all in, and you can tell us exactly how we process this.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, things have changed dramatically in the last week. But I thought to myself this morning, I went back to work this morning, and that's always a bit of a gloomy thing to do, isn't it, in early January? So I was thinking about December and the fixtures and how we played out. And I suddenly thought to myself, if we'd at the start of this run, so the weekend of West Brom away after we've just lost to them, if you offer me a point at Middlesbrough and a point at Watford, and then 3 points against Stoke and 3 points against QPR, I'd probably be sat here quite happy right now. So the overall points tally for the month is okay. We've dropped off slightly and the gap has been clawed back on, but we're still in a phenomenal position, aren't we? And we can only be positive going into this window. We've had some great news today that we'll discuss shortly, transfer-wise. They're clearly looking to get things moving quickly. And yes, we've hit a rut. Yes, we've got big injury issues. We'll discuss George Hirst, obviously. Mr. Morsey is now going to be missing for 2 huge games in the middle of the month, which doesn't make it any easier. But I seem to remember sitting here 10 months ago, 10, 11 months ago, having the exact same conversations, and look how that all panned out.
Can I, before I come to you, Craig, all of those things, I'm going to take 6 points off Craig, but Seb, but you can have George Hirst for the rest of the season. I bet you would have taken that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely.
What are you making of all this, Craig? There's so many different strands to it and different ways to view it, whilst we try not to get drawn to either the toxically negative or the toxically positive.
Yeah, similar to Seb, actually. I was going to go along similar lines to Seb there in terms of looking at December as a whole. I think Kieran McKenna did the same in his one of his post-match interviews yesterday, saying that of those 7 games in December, we won 3, drew 3, and lost 1, which on the face of it is absolutely fine certainly for the run of games that we had in that month. And similar to Seb, I probably wouldn't swap the 3 points for the 1 point. I'd just swap the games round, and we can play Stoke at the beginning of the month, and we'll have a bit of momentum heading into January with Watford and Middlesbrough. But it's and by the same token, you can chunk up the last 10 days, can't you? The last 4 games. Oh well, we've only picked up 3 points in the last 4, so you can chop and change it and dice it however you want to, can't you? So as you say, Ben, it's a case of you can still be critical of certain aspects of things that are going. You can't be ultra positive the same way you can't be ultra negative for the way things are going at the moment. I think we will try and tread that line between the two. But I think you just need to understand that people's expectations have shot through the roof, haven't they? Understandably, since August. So, you're looking at it from a different perspective than if you were looking up trying to claw yourself into the playoffs.
And Seb, whatever anyone's perspective is, whether you support Rotherham, Sheffield Wednesday or QPR, or Leeds, Southampton, Ipswich, Leicester, etc., if you go 5 without a win, it's a problem, Seb, yeah?
Yeah, and especially we were all sat here in December, and the gap was 8-9 points to Leeds at that point to third place, and that gap's been chipped away at and eroded away, and suddenly Southampton have kind of done their business quietly, and they're right behind us, but we still have a gap over them going into the new year, which most of us probably would have taken, having looked at that horrible fixture list when it was first published in the summer. But like Craig says, I think a lot of our fan base has had so much success now for a prolonged period of time. We've almost forgotten what it feels like to kind of have a bit of a blip and have a bit of a stutter. And we had this last year, went on the insane run from Easter, from February to the end of the season. It would be very hard, obviously, to replicate that, but I think that's just made us forget a little bit that this kind of stuff does happen, and as long as the performances are decent, I'm always pretty confident that the things will turn around shortly. I guess we can discuss our performances we have done, obviously, over the December period. But Leeds aside and QPR with an awful lot of caveats, I still think we're Leicester second half was superb, and we're still in an amazingly strong place going into this window.
Right. We'll do George Hirst, then we'll talk a bit about Jeremy Sarmiento. But Craig, and again, we're going right down the middle. So we're just talking objective facts here. This is terrible news. This is what the club tweeted earlier. Kieran McKenna has told the media that George Hirst is seeing a surgeon this week. And Dave and I, we always do our cod doctoring outside the Pioneer. All tweak, strain. Neither of us said rupture, which is just dreadful, dreadful news. So the first thing we have to say is this is the guy's career. Get well soon, and hopefully we'll see him back. Now, Craig, deal with this as a football supporter. This absolutely sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty disastrous, isn't it? As we've all spoken about since he joined, pretty much after he had his initial bedding in period, he's just absolutely integral to the way that we play. And you could argue that even including Morsey, who you have deputies for, and we'll need a deputy for come the Leicester game and the Sunderland game, we haven't got a deputy for George Hirst. We just simply haven't got anyone else in the squad that can do the same job to any level approaching what George Hirst does. We know who we've got in replacement, and we know what their relative strengths and weaknesses are. But sadly, their strengths don't equate to what we need from our central striker at the moment. So it's questionable whether it shows a slight failing in our transfer dealings during the summer, that we haven't got anybody that we can rely on, and as a result, we have had to flog George Hirst for maybe longer than he had to. He's been playing the vast majority of matches recently. He's playing 80 minutes, whereas before he was probably playing 60, 65, and then it was being exchanged and swapped around. But through the performances of the likes of Scarlett and Ladapo and Jackson, they just haven't given Kieran McKenna a valid option off the bench when the poor guys running on fumes towards the end of matches. And I think we may have been fortunate that we managed to get to December, late December, before he actually went twang. And I suppose we could also be thankful that it happened in mid to late December rather than mid to late January. But you say all eyes now are on the likes of Ashton, etc., as to what they can pull out the bag and the number of signings they can pull out the bag, because we could probably all agree that we were after one anyway whilst George Hirst was fit and firing. Now he's not. We're arguably after two, if not three, attacking options rather than central strikers, but certainly attacking options. Seb,
anything to add to that?
No, like Craig says, it is just gutting, isn't it? I left the ground last night, 0-0 draw, walked 25, 30 minutes back to the car in the pouring rain. Thought I'll just check Telegram before I drive back up home, and it was the opening story there. And as soon as you see the word, rupture and back end of the season, then this is really serious. Now, like you say, wish him all the best, obviously, but thankfully it has happened at a time where we are able to get replacements in. Like Craig just said, if this happens in middle of September, early October time, you've got a real problem on your hands. So thankfully they can hopefully go out and get some bodies in the building before Sunderland in 2 weeks' time. But it is a real blow because he's so crucial. Was it 6 goals, 6 assists? So he's on course for double figures of each for the season. The way he's been able to lead the line and press and have his kind of back to goal play for the last 12 months has been absolutely outstanding, and he's a big miss, and we'll miss him. But this is football, isn't it? It opens up an opportunity for somebody else, and maybe now a striker who maybe it was a bit of a tough sell to go out there and get somebody in who thought, well, I'm going to be playing sort of fiddle with George Hirst to try and share the minutes out. Maybe now you can go and get somebody who potentially wasn't on your radar as much a couple of weeks ago. But either way, it's a big blow.
What was it at the start of the season, Craig? It was Walton, and there was a couple of injuries, wasn't there? And I'm sure there's not a reserve striker we signed from Salford who's going to step up and actually a bit better than George Hirst. By the way, that was the first bodies in the building of January, Craig. So if you could get in a war chest and an over the line in the next paragraph, that'd be that'd be great. But I was coming to you to say we've been really lucky with injuries. But someone will remind me in the chat. It wasn't just Walton who got injured before the start. I remember we were panicking before the start of the season about the injuries, weren't we?
I'm trying to think. Walton was the obvious one, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure the majority of us were fit for the Sunderland game off the top of my head. I can't honestly remember, but someone said there. I think it was Adam said in the chat a little bit earlier that we did all right. Trust them this year. Exactly, they delivered last year. Well, they did come January, but we did have just Freddie Ladapo for the first half of last season, didn't we? Again, in a similar. Of course, yeah. Harry Clark getting back to fitness, yeah. We did only have Freddie Ladapo really, because we brought Gaston Hadmi as a last minute panic thing in the last throes of August. So yeah, I say that the pressure's on. It's, as Seb says, it's told in the last couple of games that we've played, we've looked disjointed and toothless against QPR, and probably just toothless against Stoke.
Yeah. Sorry, everyone. I didn't say hello. We went straight into the chat. Welcome to the Blue Monday podcast. 11 minutes into the show. If you're watching live on YouTube, we're really grateful to have you here. Get that chat moving. We love it. We read all of them. If you can see Craig or Seb not paying attention to me, they're reading your comments and stealing your ideas. That's what we do here. And in return, you can hit the thumbs up button and thank us for stealing your ideas. If you're listening after the fact on the old school audio show, we appreciate the bloody hell out of you, but go and give us a 5-star review on Spotify or whatever. Do people still use Apple Podcasts? I don't know. I'm a Spotify guy these days. Now, as one door closes, Seb, another may open at some point tomorrow. Can I be really childish? The first thing I'm going to say is, will Jeremy Sarmiento now be our most handsome player? Looking at that photograph there of this suave South American. But Seb, I'm sure you've kind of looked at Sarmiento when we prepped for the West Brom game. So he's on loan from Brighton, isn't he? Ecuador full international. I think there might have been was there a chunky fee paid at any point? Brighton, Benfica? No, probably
Benfica.
not. Straight into the under.
Charlton, wasn't he? Did I read?
Charlton
He was
Academy. Free agent to Benfica by the look of it. But Brighton, a bit of a hotbed. You'll like this, Seb. One of my West Brom mates, who's a follower of my other YouTube channel, said didn't really work at West Brom. He was a bit too tippy-tappy for Corberon, which made me think, brilliant, perfect. Yep. He might be a better match for us. So Jeremy Sarmiento then, Seb, left winger number. Hang on a minute. What's this? Nathan Broadhead. I think I'm against this signing all of a sudden now. But sorry, carry on.
He is, yeah. He's a left winger, inside forward, and can play in the number 10 role. But at West Brom, he was used primarily down the left, wasn't he? He scored a couple of goals. I think he's only started 7 games. I think they've been trying to get minutes into him over the last few weeks to try and maybe make Brighton reconsider recalling him and sending him back out again. But it hasn't really worked out there. And he's an exciting player. He's a goal threat. Hopefully, he can be a bit of a different option to Broadhead. He's kind of a dribbler like Broadhead is, but maybe a bit of is it fair to say a rough and tumble, bit more of a street kind of footballer, I would suggest maybe. And hopefully he'll just, add more kind of, weapons in the arsenal for the coming months of the season. Could be useful against a low block. And yeah, I think it's a great bit of business. I presumed when the story broke, was it yesterday, that he was getting recalled by Brighton before the links to us started. I assumed he'd go there for sort of squad cover if Matoma was going away to the Asia Cup and stuff. So I thought Brighton must rate him quite highly, but if they're clearly happy to send him back out again, then yeah, it can only be to our benefit, and it's a decent loan, which sounds like it's going to be confirmed tomorrow by all accounts. So get some minutes in him against Wimbledon in the FA Cup, and he can be fit and firing, ready to go for Sunderland.
Craig, can you just have your say, and can you just add to a couple of comments there? It does worry me a little bit, because I remember, and hopefully you're going to tell me, Ben, he was playing for Wigan under Liam Richardson and Kolo Toure up front on his own, Nathan Broadhead. But a few people saying, can you temporarily stick Broadhead up top? But talk to me about Sarmiento and how he kind of fits in.
Well, I think, as Seb says, he's just adding more strength to those attacking positions behind the striker, isn't he? You would have thought, having, as you say, he's played in the Premier League. He's had 3 games in the last World Cup, for goodness sake. So he's not an idiot. You would think that he's going to be a few steps ahead of Hutchinson potentially.
I'm sorry, I'm stopping you there. Are you telling me an idiot has never played in the World Cup? What about that Zaire free kick in the 1970s?
Oh yeah. Oh, I don't know. I can't. It's too.
That was idiots. Carry on.
A few English managers could be argued as being idiots. Yeah, I would have thought that he's an upgrade on Hutchinson, so it may well affect. And I think we'd probably initially start using him similarly to what we do Hutchinson in terms of feeding him minutes and then occasionally starting, as Seb says, when the games dictate. But it just, again, like we're saying about flogging George Hirst for all the minutes he's worth, it just potentially gives you a chance to not have so many minutes in the likes of Broadhead, Chaplin and Burns, doesn't it? Who would arguably be our 3 first choice attackers behind the striker. I did see the comments about moving Broadhead into the centre. Potentially, but you probably wouldn't want to, would you? I don't think he's really built for that role. Certainly the role that we ask of him. He's just going to be another Ladapo / Jackson makeshift gap filler rather than an actual choice that you'd want to have. So I think he's here to add competition and take some weight off the shoulders of the guys that are already there.
And Craig, this will all have been planned weeks before Hirst got injured, won't there's no kind of link to that, is there? No,
absolutely not. And it's just a strange one, isn't it? That if we take it at face value that Brighton have pulled him back for lack of minutes, that we have presumably said that we not guarantee, but we will offer him more than he's been getting at West Brom. And also there's the journalist that broke it this morning said that there was also an option that should we get promoted, he'll be with us for next year as well. So yeah, some forward thinking for you.
I like that type of forward thinking. Seb, can you tell we drew 0-0? That we've done 17 minutes here, and I haven't gone to the game yet. A second consecutive 0-0. Right, let's get into it then. Now, keep your comments coming about George Hirst and about Jeremy Sarmiento, who we hope is going to be announced in all his glory at some point tomorrow. Fingers crossed. Right, so we weren't calling it the Hateful Eight. Chris in the Telegram group has now lengthened it out to the Terrible 10. I love Chris, but I'm not going to allow it. We have to fence off the Hateful Eight because they wouldn't have been the Terrible 10 if we hadn't have had the injuries in for that QPR game. And it all of a sudden, Seb, it went from, okay, get to the end of the Hateful Eight to, right, get to the end of here and, get FA Cup out of the way with all the injuries. Do you class these 2 games and the 0-0 draws hopefully as this little thing we just had to get done and we've got 2 clean sheets and let's have our fingers crossed that the available faces, Morsey aside, of course, we'll come to that, much more plentiful when we get to January 13th?
I think so. These games were just something to get through, I think, weren't we? I think before QPR in the Telegram group, I said today, you've just got to find a way to win tonight. Unfortunately, we couldn't. And, the Stoke games are coming so quickly afterwards. We were having a debate, weren't we, earlier on the Telegram group about that December 29th game is really irritating, isn't it? You're looking at 4 games in 9 days and it's simply too much. I understand there's people love seeing football over the festive period. The Boxing Day game is great. The New Year's Day game is great. But that one sort of on the Friday has really hurt us. And as a result, these were just 2 games for me to get through. And then you can give the first team or what's left of it a sort of a couple of weeks off. They can hopefully go and get some sun on their backs. You can take a reserve side to Wimbledon and then look to regroup and go again for the Sunderland game. So yeah, and after that second half performance against Leicester, which was excellent and took a lot out of us, obviously, these 2 for me were just games just to get it done. If you find a way, if you can, we've taken 2 points, 2 clean sheets back to back, undefeated. It's done now. We look to start it all again on January the 13th.
Yeah, agreed. So, Craig, this was the solution for this kind of last game before what we expect to be a bit of a mini break. Kladky in goal. Tuan Zabi, McKenna was keen to not call him a right back in the post-match. I kind of right centre-back, he sort of called him, but go on, Kieran. Wolfenden, Edmondson in. Obviously, Burgess is going to be going out to the Asia Cup, isn't it? That he's going to. Clark at left back against the side that he was on loan at for the first half of last season, so familiar surroundings. Morsey and Luongo. It's a little yellow signal by Morsey there. Again, we'll get to that. Broadhead, Chaplin and Burns. Jackson up top. Craig, I don't really expect you to comment with any nuance on that. It's basically all he could put out, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, it is nice to have the two centre midfielders and the three ahead of them, isn't it? Because as we saw, it was a far more joined up display than it was against QPR, probably for those reasons, because the players from the middle of the pitch know each other like the back of their hands. Yeah, as you say about Twenzabe, he was a very, very, very wide right centre back, wasn't he? At the weekend.
We can speak to our friend Luke Chambers about this, can't we?
But yeah, he we'll talk through the match, but he did perfectly okay. I thought Clark played well on the left, albeit being hamstrung a little bit by having to cut inside when he's looking to get the ball forward, which is something that McKenna referenced when he spoke about the absence of Davis being able to get crosses in quicker and earlier from the left wing. Edmondson, I thought, did brilliantly. I say it's just that striker, isn't it? We just do look toothless because, as I said earlier, for all Caden Jackson's plus points, pace, closing down, etc., his first touch and ability to take a ball in his stride when through on goal, probably not what the others have. But you're not going to get that complete striker, unfortunately. Which the closest we've got's sitting with his hamstring in ice at the moment. So yeah, I think, as you say, it's the best that we could have done, certainly. And I suppose it does show that we are, in terms of squad depth, there is volume there. It's just a question of whether the quality is there to not notice much of a drop off, I suppose.
Craig, you need to make a call now. Do you want me to mention the sporting super injunction we talked about before the show, or do you not want me to mention it? Because you don't want to read the comments.
I'm not reading the comments. I'm looking straight at you.
Okay. Do you want me to mention it, or shall I not mention it?
Yeah, mention it. I'm gonna.
If you value the middle podcast with this free, stop talking about the darts in the in the comments, please. Spoiler alerts will be will be ignored, and Craig will have to zone out of the comments, which you don't want because they're ever so helpful. Stoke, Seb, Bonham in goal, Chamado, McNally, Rose, Hoover, Baker, Thompson, Berger, Bay, May. It's such fun front three, and Vidigal. Again, I see these teams, Seb, and it does just remind me how well we've done when you imagine the combined transfer fee and salary of that bunch, right?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, they're obviously a side in transition, aren't they, now that Schumacher's came in? I think me and Rich on the pre-match show back in August were saying that Vidigal might be a decent buy, and he started the season really well, didn't he? I think he had 4 or 5 in the first month of games, but I think he's got 1 in the last 15 or something like that. So yeah, they're very much a side in transition, given that Schumacher's come in and will presumably look to shift things across. And yeah, McNally is known to us, obviously, that dalliance we had with him in the summer when he was close to joining on loan from Burnley, but ended up going there instead. And apart from that, there weren't too many names that I recognised, to be honest.
Are you going to admit that you like Schumacher now? So it's really good, isn't he?
yeah, he is. Fair play. Yeah, he is.
Right, we'll go with Seb because he was in the Bet365 on a cold. Can you do it on a New Year's Day? Do you want to? It's not much to talk about really until we get to the red card. But do you want to sort of take us through the first half and the performance in general? One of my Stoke mates, I texted him afterwards, Seb, and said, "How did it go?" And he said, "You look like a good team with a few of your best players not playing."
Exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly how it summed up. I mean, they started the game stronger. First 15, 20 minutes, we were penned in quite a few corners in quick succession. We kind of stopped them to a couple of shots from range, which were pretty comfortable for Lackey. He tipped one round the post, a couple as he just kind of gathered in. We didn't get going at all for the first 15, 20 minutes. Our usual passing game, we just couldn't do it. Lackey put one out of play very uncharacteristically for him. Yeah, it was noticeable, I thought. I mean, Edmondson was superb. He's probably my man of the match yesterday. Every time a ball came into the box from a corner or from a cross, he was there to clear it. He was excellent. But there was a noticeable kind of hesitancy, I thought, to pass to him like they do to Burgess to kind of build out from the back. Everything tended to go sort of to Wolfenden on the right-hand side. Luongo didn't really get going at all. A couple of really silly early errors, unforced errors, where he gives away possession a couple of times, and that led to balls into the box. But nothing really happened. I mean, there was the leg high challenge on Caden Jackson as we were looking to break, which I think, I mean, the ref was very close to it. In a VAR world, you could potentially say that could have been worse than the yellow card that they were shown. And we, towards, sort of 20, 25 minutes onwards, we started to get our passing game going a little bit, but again, we did look relatively toothless up front. There were some nice kind of patterns of play building from the back once we worked out how to do it again, and we were kind of trying to look to break the lines and use Jackson's pace to get in behind. But one Chaplin effort aside, and he kind of created that himself. There was a cross in, he kind of swivels on the edge of the box and gets a shot straight down the throat of Bonham, who kind of tipped it away slightly. Apart from that, it was very little to write home about. I guess pre-match we were I was expecting the team maybe to be, I was pleased Burns and Broadhead both came in. I thought they definitely one of them might make it, i.e. Burns, but I thought if Broadhead was being sick in the warm-up on Friday night, he definitely won't be involved. But even with those guys in, I think it was clear that
sick of you lot slagging him off.
I think we were clear that we were not up to full strength. Even with them playing, they weren't fully at it. And as Craig said, Clark was having to cut back every time onto his right foot. And it was just a bit of a non-event, to be honest. Weathered the early storm well, defensively strong. Edmondson in particular, very good defensively. But at halftime, we were kind of a bit optimistic because we had grown into it. But missing George Hirst was killing us because we offered very, very little up front.
I mean, he's nailed that there, Craig. So can you just add in 2 yellow cards, one for Jordan Thompson and one, finally, for Mr. Sam Morsey?
Yeah. I think taking the Morsey one first, it's a yellow card, isn't it? It's something that he's done approximately 9 times previously, umpteen times before already this season. Sometimes he gets carded for it and sometimes he doesn't, but he knew exactly what he's doing. And they know what they're doing, because as soon as they do it, they start waving their finger, don't they? Say, no, it wasn't a foul, but it's a clear yellow. And I think the other one was a red, to be honest. I think it's a thigh-high tackle. As Seb says, if it's a VAR, it's a red card. Arguably, if it's Morsey making that tackle, it's in an away game. The crowd are on the referee's back and it's a red card. I just wonder whether the referee was maybe too close to it. So it sort of just happened as he was turning, sort of thing, and didn't really have a clear view of it. But yeah, I don't think there'd been too many arguments if he'd picked up a red. But as it was, time will tell, and that'll happen eventually. But yeah, just exactly as Seb says, just pretty toothless. Stoke were enjoying cheering Hladky on the ball, and they obviously hadn't seen him play the previous 49 matches that he'd started for us. They were expecting him to make a glaring error, which he doesn't tend to do.
Well, that was quite good because that started when he put one straight out of place. They did the usual, and then I think they twigged after about 10 minutes as he was kind of, calmly passing it sideways to Twanzebe and Wolfenden that, actually, he's quite good at this. So they kind of, the crescendo of laughter got less and less, and eventually they just gave up with it. I'm
normally against stubborn people, Seb, but one thing with Mr. Hladky in goal is the more you groan and whimper, the longer he's going to hold the ball onto the ball for. I think he kind of sees that as a bit of a badge of honour when he gets the groans. He's like, I'll show you. Let's just stay with Craig then, Seb. And you can kind of see by the lack of subs that really probably both managers, just as to Seb's point with the run of games, maybe if you did remove that one on the 29th or whatever it was, you might see a bit more energy in these games. But yeah, let's just get out of Dodge here. And we must raise this as well. I know it's a pretty dumb cliche, really, the win at home, draw away, because literally no side has ever won all their home games and no side has ever drawn all their away games. But the point being, it adds up to 2 points per game. And we've already beaten QPR and we've already beaten Stoke. So there was some credit in the bank. I don't know it's the right thing to do, Craig, to judge them as pairs right the way through the season. Yeah. But it helps me rationalise 5 without a win, so I'm going to do it anyway. And a controversial red card here, Craig.
Yeah, according to Stephen Schumacher, it was. If you obviously at the time, I'm sure Seb in the ground couldn't see because it was so fleeting and over in a flash. But if you look at it, certainly on the replay, the normal replays, but then definitely on the Town in 5 replay, they showed it pretty clearly from low behind the goal. Thompson, he waves his little yellow card, his imaginary yellow card, and it's just similarly to players kicking the ball away. It's just inherent. It's hardwired into some of these players. They just can't not do it. But yeah, and as was said on the Town TV commentary, the referee was almost apologetic in having to send him off because it's a second yellow. If the referee hadn't,
It's like when they take the shirt off when they score.
Yeah,
it's like, sorry, mate, I've got to send you off, you idiot. Yeah.
Exactly. And if the referee hadn't have booked him and sent him off, he'd have been dragged over the coals for seeing it and not producing a yellow card. But as I say, Schumacher, I think in his post-match comment said, not many people in the stadium saw it. Well, only needs one person in the stadium to see it, and that's the bloke who was, I was going to say wearing black, but he wasn't. He was wearing sort of yellow. And it's the only guy that needs to see it, and the only guy that did see it, it would appear. So yeah, sadly, but that probably again played into Stoke's hands in terms of us just huffing and puffing now for the remaining half an hour of the game without a focal point up front, and they brought on an even larger centre half to join the other two centre halves that were already on the pitch, and we had no guile in our play. We could get Hutchinson was getting crosses in, but he's only aiming at Nathan Broadhead due to his stature, rather than it being only Nathan Broadhead. There was no way in the world we were going to get those. And Jack made a good point in our Telegram group when we were all discussing it post-match in terms of, one of the ways you can get around a low block and a 10-man team is to do things either a lot quicker or just do a lot more of the things that you want to do, i.e. shots and crosses. And we didn't really have the volume of shots and crosses to eventually create something, nor were we doing anything particularly quickly with the ball, where we said.
No, you're right.
I think just to piggyback on what Craig said, Seb, I think just the general energy and intensity levels when you're into, game number 10 of the terrible 10 and, a break's coming up and you're 20 minutes to go, perhaps if that game's in the middle of September, you go on and you make the extra man count. I just wanted to raise, because a few people have said it in the chat, and I do agree with the consistency on the. Well, I must admit, I do that in the as a fan sometimes. When someone pulls their shirt back, I go, it makes no difference. But so I'm as bad as these horrible players for doing it. The one that got me was at Watford, where Jamal Lewis kicked the ball away. Brandon Williams then said he should be booked for kicking the ball away. Brandon Williams got booked for saying he should be booked in Jamal Lewis. I always think it's completely unfair to hold refs to a standard of getting 100% of everything right all the time, ever. But as a general rule, with things like kicking the ball away, whether it's... Do you remember the first game of the season? I think it was Lee Gregory for Wednesday. Just flicked it away with the outside of his foot. And you thought, right, great. Here we go. You kick the ball away, you're done. And we've seen our players a few times really knowing not to kick the ball away. It looks like they've been well drilled. But if you've got anything to add on the red card, Seb, then feel free. And why could you got anything to add on why we couldn't break down the 10 men? The attack momentum graph says we were on top slightly.
Yeah, we must have had, from that point onwards, the possession must have been 80% plus, but they brought on Ben Wilmot, who went into a back five, very much a back five with a four in front, whose only priority was to kind of launch the ball to our channels to try and kind of take it as long as possible for it to come back to them. And yeah, like Craig said, we pushed Broadhead up front, so Jackson goes off. He was done at one point. He was absolutely spent. He couldn't give any more. And interestingly, Ladapo doesn't come on. He puts Broadhead through the middle and puts Hutchinson on the left, which I guess tells us where kind of Ladapo is in the pecking order at the moment. He does come on eventually, but Hutchinson goes left, caught offside a few times. Lots of crosses straight to the keeper. And yeah, the one time we get in behind, it's a lovely through ball from Chaplin inside the fullback. Burns is in behind, gets the shot off. I think that was before the red, actually. Gets the shot off, and Bonham makes a big save. But once it went to the back five with the four in front, we changed formation. Ladapo came on and went up front with Broadhead. We took Twanzebe off and kind of went to a back three with Clark, Wolfenden, and Edmondson. Morsey sitting just in front, and we just couldn't get in behind them. We couldn't break them down. We didn't really create any. If you've watched the highlights on either Town TV or YouTube, you'll see after the red card, I don't think there's any more highlights to show, because it was basically us with the ball, knocking it around, trying to find openings down either flank. If we did, inevitably caught offside or the cross going straight into the keeper. Ladapo did come on. There was a half-hearted kind of penalty appeal where one of the defenders was grabbing his shirt. Not for me, not strong enough for me there. If that's given against you, be absolutely fuming. And apart from that, that was pretty much it. And you have to take the positives, back-to-back clean sheets again, dominated the ball dominated the performance really from kind of 25, 30 minutes onwards. And it's done now. We can move on. We can rest some players in the next 2 weeks and look to really freshen up, get some new additions in and go hard from the middle of January onwards.
It's a proper nil-niller, Craig, when you look at the numbers. Look at the XG, 0.26,
Yeah.
plays 0.57. I was nodding along to Seb's point just about the circumstances, Craig. It's not Easter. It's not April and you're coming up to the end of the season where everybody's winning, and if you don't win, you're screwed. And the season is a journey, isn't it? And there's some bits you just have to get through, don't you? And if this is going to be a absolutely incredible season, then maybe you look back and, as the most positive things you can say, didn't lose, clean sheet twice.
Yeah, we don't. On top of everything, we don't get beaten very often, do we? We haven't been beaten very often since Kieran McKenna walked in the door. Just really nice, just get one win maybe out of one of those draws, and everything would be rosy, I think. And we just mustn't get too blasé about the fact that we've gone to Stoke. As Seb said, we've gone to Stoke and been on top, weathered that initial storm and just taken control of the game. And as your mate rightly said, Ben, we looked a good team who were missing one or two of our better players, and that's pretty much perfectly put, really. And I say we just mustn't get blasé about the fact that we have made this step up and we're now going to Stoke and being disappointed by coming away with a 0-0 draw, whereas in previous years in the Championship would have been hop, skip and jumping back down the road with a point in our back pocket.
It's a live match reaction, isn't it? So I'm not going to run the Innovation Labs ad, but we love Innovation Labs, and it's not really a preview show, but we're not going to have one. But we love the Greyhound as well, and we love our Telegram group. And I'm doing all of my plugs, and I think our good friend Jacob has been looking at some transfer targets. When's that going out, guys? I think it's going out tomorrow.
There's 2 this week.
Oh, fantastic. So, yeah, normal plugs on a weird type show. We'll get back into the groove, as said Madonna in, 1985, Craig, into the groove?
A bit earlier, maybe, 4?
And someone correct us in the chat on that. Don't mention the bloody darts, though. Wimbledon Flagship will be at the normal times Craig looks for.
I'm looking for my Guinness Book of hit singles.
Music Almanac. Right, boys, let's get into... We'll go to questions in a minute in the chat. Let's just get into... I'm sure you've not been able to keep up with 4 rounds of 12 championship games in the past 9 games. I've tried my best. So we'll have a little amble through what went on. That didn't go on because it's literally the next round of games. But yeah, another full slate yesterday. Mick Beale has got 7 points in his last 3 as Sunderland manager. Preston, bang out of form. Sunderland 2, Preston 0. Speaking of bang out of form, Blackburn have fallen like a stone over the Christmas period. And Liam Richardson, our old mucker from a couple of seasons ago in League One as Wigan manager, has got Rotherham going a little bit there, 2-2. They're kind of back in the conversation. Bristol City 0, Millwall 1. 10 points over Christmas for Millwall. 4 straight clean sheets. Well played, Joe Edwards. Leeds at home are very good. Not so good away at Christmas. Leeds 3, Birmingham 0. And I wonder if the boys have heard any news from Birmingham today at all. I'm not sure there's been any. Leicester 4, Huddersfield 1. Leicester are going to break Reading's record, aren't they? It's looking more difficult not to do now with that squad. Now they've really got going. Middlesbrough are sick of the sight of Coventry because they beat them in the playoffs earlier in the season, and they've done a double on them now. Say it quietly, Craig. Thank you, Norwich. Norwich 1, Southampton 1. A very helpful equaliser in that from them there, Canaries. And ITV, as the chat has pointed out, absolutely all over it. I'll allow it, Seb. I'll allow it, being it gave us a big hand. Plymouth 3, Watford 3. If you want to talk about the Finn Azaz goal in that game, utterly tremendous stuff. Plymouth still without manager. QPR 1, Cardiff 2. Swansea still without manager. 1, West Brom 0. West Brom a bit up and down, aren't they? And mainly up at the moment. Sheffield Wednesday 3, Hull 1. Back-to-back wins for the Wednesday. They looked dead and buried. They don't look dead and buried anymore. Anything, Steph, we'll go to first. You'd like to pick up from there, my friend?
Just the thankful to that lot up the road for doing us a bit of a favour. I was checking
They love us, don't they?
I was checking the score throughout because obviously, as we just discussed, the game wasn't amazing. So there was a bit of downtime and a bit of free time. And I think at one point, Southampton had 81% possession sort of halfway through the first half, but only one shot on target, thankfully. And yeah, that's a nice little favour from them to stop a bit of momentum on their part. And that keeps the gap, thankfully, to 3 points.
Craig, any championshipy stuff you wanted to pick up on?
Just that Finn Azaz goal, but then like 5 of the 6 goals in that game were fantastic, weren't they? It's just, but that like
Plymouth, yeah,
cool, that cushioned side foot volley into the far corner was
Amazing.
just ridiculous, wasn't it? And Morgan Whittaker's going to go for some cash eventually, isn't he? I think as well.
Yes, I think our friends at Plymouth, imagine they did hire Paul Cook, that'd be sensational, wouldn't it? Right. Ladies and gentlemen in the chat, let's get to some questions. If you can stick a Q before the question and a question mark afterwards, that really helps me out. I think we had a couple already, but get that chat filled up. This is a regular topic, this one. Craig, is Ladapo on his way out? I think Chris from Telegram mentioned Oxford is looking likely. Must be seen as like a I'm trying to think of an equivalent. A signing Dwight Gale used to be in the Championship, just a guarantee of goals at League One level.
Who Seb saw yesterday?
I forgot he was still there. Yeah, he came on.
Is he
didn't
still
he?
there?
Yeah, he was there. He came on about 10 minutes to go.
Did I caveat that enough with used to say about Dwight Gale? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Ladapo won't be on his way out anytime soon until there's another 1 or 2 bodies in the building. I wouldn't think, but yeah, as Seb said, in terms of his
War chest.
in terms of his substitute appearance yesterday, coming on at the very, very last knockings, when you're desperate to get a goal and you're trying to get crosses into the box, you would have thought Ladapo would have been the change to make sooner rather than later. But he was sort of a very much a last resort sub yesterday. So you would have thought that if all things were being equal and George Hirst was still fit, then he may well have been gone by now. But you would have thought that he'll be on his way in January should they be able to make some signings as replacements.
Feels wrong celebrating the Norwich goal. The important thing to do, Ed, don't ever celebrate the Norwich goal. Just kind of acknowledge it if it comes through on your phone, because expect them to then concede another one. But we will give them kudos for not losing to Southampton. We'll give them that. Joe, to you, Seb, do you expect Leeds and Southampton to spend big in January? I'm going to define big as £5 to £10 million, and you can include loan fees and promotion bonuses that don't apply to FFP in that, Seb.
I would think they'll both look to add, won't they? I mean, Southampton lost. Who was the guy that's now been ruled out? Ross Stewart, wasn't it? They paid, was it £8 million for him? And they've got to go and replace him for one. And I guess Leeds, hopefully it'll be nice if some of the kind of mid to higher Premier League sides came in and pinched the likes of Somerville. But if they do, they'll just go out and spend again. So yeah, if we're talking 5 to 10 million as being kind of substantial, then I'd expect them both to go out and strengthen. And I think Joe summed it up quite nicely yesterday in Telegram, where he said, this 3-way battle between us, Leeds and Southampton, it might just get a little bit too rich for us. If they're able to do that and go out and make those kind of signings almost on a punt. I mean, Ross Stewart, £8 million is barely featured, and they can do that, and that's not something we can do at this point in time.
Tom Cannon literally just started for Leicester now. That's their £8 million strike a punt, right?
Yeah, so we can't compete with those kind of figures. It's a case of let's wait and see what we can do with the people that we can bring into the building, and we'll see. But I would expect them both, given the position they're in and the fact that owners in year one parachute clubs do tend to like to kind of get back ASAP, because as we all know, the percentage chance of returning to the Premier League does kind of drop off considerably if you don't make it back in that year one. They'll do it with a look to, a bit like us maybe, with a safety net of selling some assets come the summer if you don't get across the line in May.
Craig, surely they're going to be having similar conversations to us, with the context a bit different. We're obviously saying it's a once-in-a-generation chance, but they're going to be saying, right, if you're Leeds, you're going to be saying this about Southampton. If you're Southampton, you're going to be saying this about Leeds. They're going to go big, so we've got to go big. You've got to try and leverage the position. Now, they have to spend, both of them, surely, don't they?
Yeah. Well, especially, once place has gone over the horizon, doesn't it? So they're now
they're gone, aren't they? Yeah.
There's three of us playing for one final spot, isn't there? I say we just got to hope that we can stay within touching distance of should Southampton overtake us in the coming weeks when we've got suspensions and still trying to bed in hopefully some new players throughout January, if we can still stay within touching distance of them, then their tougher matches will come through February, March and April, won't they? I think they've got West Brom away, Leeds away, Leicester away, I think, or certainly got us away, haven't they?
And
all
us,
of them away from home.
Yeah.
You're totally right, Craig. If we are in an automatic promotion race, which we might not be in 8 weeks' time, I bloody well hope we are, but you've got to play the long game with Southampton, haven't you? Because that's when you can leverage it a little
pull them back.
bit. Yeah. Nick, we're going to go on to this, Nick, in a minute. Are we bothered about the cup game? So can we hold that thought, even though we're all just going to say no, aren't we? But we could talk about the team as well in a minute. Whose go is it? It's Craig, isn't it? Do you think Walton's command in the air may outweigh Vaz Ball at his feet play?
No, I don't think so at all. I think it's just so fundamental to the way that we now play, as we saw in both the QPR and the Stoke game. It just, especially if you're playing against teams who you're trying to entice to press you to get around the back of them and down the sides of them, he's absolutely 100% integral. And if you have got all of your players encamped in the opposition 40 yards, Wolfenden was our furthest player back yesterday, apart from Hladky, and he was about 35 yards away from the Stoke goal at points, and Hladky, by definition, is then standing on the halfway line. So, I think it's just going to be, as we've all seen, he's just integral to the way that we now play.
Amen.
I don't think that many teams sling balls into our box either. So, I mean, it's a handful of corners a match, maybe, that Walton may come for, that Hladky will punch, but in the whole scheme of things, it's not as if you're playing Rotherham each week.
It's just part of this generation now, Craig, isn't it? This change where possession is so vital that I think people like, say, Białkowski, who was an amazing keeper for us, and goalkeepers aren't going to be trained like that. They're all going to be on the edge of the box and, part of the possession game for their team from the age of under 11s or something represented. This is A in the chat. If we can't finish second, would it be best for Leeds to get automatics? These are fun games to play, Seb, aren't they? We can theorise about any potential team that one would face in the playoffs. That maybe a West Brom would be a horrible Stoic opponent. You could say maybe Southampton you could get at, but they've still got quality. Leeds you might fancy scoring against, but they might fancy adding to the 7 goals they've already scored past us. And Coventry are coming strong, aren't they? Sunderland are there, Hull are there. Middlesbrough, I've overrated them all season, but you get what you get in the playoffs, don't you?
Very much so. And equally, a lot of sides won't be happy about facing us, especially, I know recently we've had 2 back-to-back goalless draws, but, the amount of goals we were scoring at Portman Road, anyone could go to Ellen Road and get battered 3 or 4-0 in the first leg of a playoff semi, but there's no reason, if we had everybody fit, everybody firing, that we couldn't do the same to a side as well. So, I guess logically on paper, you look at it and you say Leeds have put, 8 past us with 3 in reply across 2 games. So we also won 1-0 away at Southampton. So logically...
Sorry, I said 7, didn't I? My bad. Sorry. It is 8.
Yeah, it might be the easier game to go for, but you take what you're given, like you say. When it comes to May, if we finish in the playoffs and we have a playoff semi, 2-legged against West Brom, Southampton, Leeds, whoever it's going to be, we will take it and we will deal with it accordingly. But I think a lot of those sides would worry also about facing us. Maybe not right now, but certainly if we can get our groove going, if we finish the season strongly going into May, we do have the ability as well to kind of put a few goals past sides at Portman Road.
Can I say something that will make me so unpopular, Craig? They say, defences win tournaments and leagues. In 2-legged playoff games, I always think they favour teams that know how to defend over the 180 minutes. Look at Coventry and Middlesbrough last year, and look at Huddersfield get into the final. I do feel, and let's be fair about this, McKenna is so intelligent and learnt so brilliantly last season. I do feel you need to go into a playoff. We're getting way ahead of ourselves now with that string to your bow, because it does favour people like Mark Robbins or Carlos Corberan over, say, a Daniel Farker or a Bielsa.
But equally, until Leeds, sorry, Craig, just quickly, until Leeds away, didn't we have the best record for away goals conceded in the league?
Well, that's
We'd only conceded 9 or something, hadn't we? So I know it's taken a bit of a hit since we went to Ellen Road, but our record was pretty outstanding. Let's not forget.
Yes, comment. Coming, Craig.
Yeah, we can we can talk about it come May when it comes to fruition. But as Seb says, Leeds have got the potential to blow anyone away at home, haven't they? Regardless of how you set up, and there could potentially just be a little bit of scar tissue there on our side in terms of having conceded 4 goals twice against them, and then a raucous crowd on a Friday night where it happened to be at Elland Road. So ideally, yeah, they'll get promoted. Hull will beat Southampton in the other playoff leg, and we'll play Hull at Wembley in the tail end of May.
Speaking of scar tissue, though, talk to any Leeds fan about the playoffs, and they're even more afraid of them than we are. The scar tissue works both ways, put it that way. Adam, oh God. Right. Okay. Am I allowed to have a 30-second rant about parachute payments? Because it's coming, isn't it? Town are stated to be one of the richest clubs in the champ. How much does FFP hold us back? So the normal answer, I know this is boring and we like watching blokes bang the ball in the back of the net from 30 yards, but FFP is not what holds anybody back. It's parachute payments that holds everybody back. FFP is a £13 million limit every season, rolling 3-year limit, £39 million in a year one parachute team. We think he's going to get 55 million this year. So go figure. Your entire allowable losses over a 3-year period are paid by the Premier League to a year one parachute team as good money, because you can have good money and bad money in FFP. If that was a bit more even, FFP wouldn't really be holding anyone back. But I do agree with the sentiment. Look at the Coates family at Bet365. They've got more money than God, haven't they? And I think even Mr. Chansiri at Sheffield Wednesday and the Chinese ownership at West Brom have all, hundreds of millions in the bank. It's only, I think, poor old Delia, who's a pauper relative in championship terms, and Simon, what's the Plymouth guy's name? Seb, I can't remember his surname. The owner,
Simon Ginster.
That's atrocious. Simon Ginster, the Plymouth owner. We love what Plymouth have done. Beautifully run club. Please don't clip that out and say we're insulting them. But yeah, it's the parachute payments that kills off the competition, adds the cliff edges in, and you hear these really stupid arguments from the parachute teams trying to defend the indefensible. It's not just about them; it's what it does to everybody else. It ramps everybody else's wages up that they have to pay to try and compete. It's their inability to sign anybody that the parachute team's interested in. Anybody, forget it. They can pay double the wages, and so that, don't start me on that. Sorry, Craig, we're going to come in.
Yeah, what you can be rest assured is that we will be spending as much as we can possibly spend, won't we? We'll keep it within our means and we'll keep it within the regulations, but we won't be scrimping and saving in January. We'll be doing everything we can to get the most out of what we can possibly use. No
return for Kevin Brew then.
No, unlikely.
I don't know why I single poor old Kevin Brew out there.
We've got Preston away shortly, haven't we? So he could come back and stick one in the top corner from 35 yards again, like he did before.
Was there one at Bolton he scored as well? I think
I was there for that one. That was a night game
in the last minute where he swazzed it in the top corner. What a goal! What a player, Kevin Brew. Sorry, I went off on a rant there, didn't I? Do you feel we need a new fullback? Is necessary. We lack natural width without Leaf. We do need to accept, Craig, that Leif Davis is somewhat of a freak of nature for a championship fullback, numbers-wise, isn't he? And that it's probably an unfair comparison to compare any player in the championship playing fullback to him, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And we did obviously toy with the idea of Humphreys playing there against QPR, and that probably would be our backup once he's fit. But you're not going to have anyone come in who's of a level that's going to happily sit behind Leif Davis on the bench just on the off chance that he strains his calf for 2 or 3 weeks, are you? So I think we'll probably, it might not be Davis that we need to look to have a substitute for. It might be Williams that heads off because he's not getting any game time either, is he? We're talking about Ladapo earlier coming on late. Williams isn't getting a look in much for the salary you think that we're paying Man U. You're probably not getting a return on much of your investment there. So that might be one that gets switched and swapped in January.
Right. Can we do a few quick fire? Because there's some brilliant questions in here and I don't want to ignore them. Lewis has mentioned Zaruri and Benson said, does Sarmiento put pay to that?
Probably, because you're not going to be able to fit everybody in with the existing squad either, are you? And I think weren't Southampton linked with Benson as well? And like you just said, if a parachute club comes in, you've lost. So yeah, I think Sarmiento comes in and with Broadhead, Harness, Chaplin, Burns, etc. You probably are well stocked for the three behind the striker.
Benson's worth at least 4 goals coming in off the right and bending it into the far corner of his left foot. They bring him on with 10 minutes to go. Sean, Craig, did Edmondson show enough to cover Burgess' absence? I think he didn't he, Craig?
Yeah, he was really, really good. I'm really pleased for him as well. As Seb said, he sort of he headed everything away. He did his proper defending job, but then he was also fine on the ball like he does. He plays those like Wolfenden-like passes, doesn't he, into the midfield as well with a little bit of zip on them. So yeah, it was a good performance considering how long he's been out for and hasn't started many matches, etc., etc. I thought he slotted in really nice, and it probably does take any pressure off what we thought was going to be a whole Burgess gone. As the guy said there about Twenzabi, whether he's good enough to play right back match after match after match, I'd probably question. But for a one-off match, yes. And then you can cover in the middle, can't you? I think we're covered for centre defenders. We're okay for. It's just potentially the Williams conundrum should he head back.
Seb, I'm going to be really snobby here. Rudder is he's listed a load of League One strikers there: Rhodes, May, Cole, Reed, Bishop, Charles. Doesn't float my boat anymore. If we were in the bottom half of the Championship, maybe, but if we kind of move past that with the greatest, especially to Alfie May and Jordan Rhodes, who have scored tons of goals in their careers.
Different ponds now, aren't we? I mean, out of all of them, if I had to have one, I'd probably have Colby Bishop, but I think we'd all find any of those signings pretty underwhelming. Look at last year, last January we get players from the league above who come down. I think we're looking to do the same this year, and signing a League One striker wouldn't necessarily do anything for me. I mean, Ladapo's probably got a better goal record than most of them, so you're not really fixing anything, I don't think.
Football head. Is there a worry we lack a plan B when some first choice players are unavailable? I suspect football head Kieran McKenna has probably got a plan RSTUVWXYZ, and the likes of you, me, Craig, and Seb probably can't even see it because, do you know what I mean? I think this plan B thing, I'm not having a pop at football head 7 there. I think this plan B is, but it's normally with most, and again, I'm not accusing the questioner, it's going long for the last 10 minutes, isn't it? But I think there are many plans and many angles of attack that we probably as laymen can't even see, can we?
Yeah, 100%. And as we spoke about it last week when we were saying that, will there be any tactical changes between now and the end of the season? Yes, there probably is. And no, we probably won't be able to see them when they happen. Exactly that, yeah. What you may find is that the absence of Hirst makes us play us in a slightly different manner, depending on what his replacement or who his replacement ends up being. But, your plan A works. Your plan A, subsection 3, works okay at the moment, doesn't it? It's not particularly broken. It's just the players you need to slip into. I think we've proven over the last almost a year, 11 months, that plan A is pretty good. So I say it's probably just a question of getting the right players to replace the ones that are blowing out their backsides at the moment in your plan A.
Did you used to love it when George Burley used to do all that with his hands? I'm like, wait, what does that mean, George? What does that mean? Do the same thing but better? Probably, but there you go. Right, guys, amazing questions in the chat as ever. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate your insight. We really do learn a lot from it, especially in our Telegram group where you can join up. You get a free trial for a couple of weeks. We really do. That's moving all day, every day, especially in January with lots of sort of transfer talk. There's a match day group as well. You can even give your own review of Craig's performance on the pod each and every week afterwards. And we can enter spoilers about darts in there because he's not checking his phone during the show. Do check out Telegram. And if you are watching live now, give us a thumbs up. It is Wimbledon. Underground, overground, Wimbledon free, said the Wombles of Wimbledon, common are we. Nick asked in the chat, do you give a flying FUCK about this match? I know we respect and love the FA Cup with our storied history, but what's your answer?
Well, I'm quite glad it's not a league game this coming Saturday. I'm not going to lie, to allow some rest. And it'll be a useful exercise to get some minutes into some of the squad players. When let's be honest, none of us are expecting us to go there and put out the established first team, but it'll be useful for the likes of Walton to come in and maybe Don Ball. And I presume Morsey will now play. Otherwise, he won't play a game till the 27th of January, whatever it'll be. So I assume Morsey will get a game. And yeah, it'll be what we know the cup games are. We'll play the B/C team. It'll be useful for some people to get some minutes into their legs. And, if we can go through that, they'll be very direct and 4-4-2. And who's the striker? Al Hamadi, isn't he? Is it half a dozen goals?
Actually.
Yeah, half a dozen. Sorry, a dozen goals so far this season, half a dozen assists.
From Iraq. Yeah.
Yeah, they've got a right winger, James Tilley. I think it's got 7 goals and 4 assists. So they'll have some threat, but yeah, just go there, play the B/C team, use it as an opportunity to get some minutes in the legs of some of the squad players. And if we can get a victory, happy days. We'll see who we get in the 4th round in 3 weeks later. I don't really want a replay. Would be horrible, wouldn't it? Let's be honest, just adding another fixture to the fixture list. But treat it as what it is. It's useful for getting some minutes in the legs, and we'll see if we can get a nice tasty draw the other side, should we be able to get through it.
Good point from Rich here. If you don't give a flying, you know what, you can go and see ITFC women play Oxford on Sunday at the AGL in Felixstowe. Al Hamadi in the Asia Cup. You're not even going to get to see him, Seb, apparently.
Okay, fair enough. That shows the level of research I've done for this pre-match.
Mate, it's 30 seconds more than I did. Put it that way. Plough Lane. There you go. Right, let me try this, Craig, and you see how many you agree. So Walton will play, won't he?
Yep.
Williams.
Humphreys will play. Baggett's not here.
Baggett's not
away.
Here.
Yeah. Humphreys will play.
Donathian.
Don't know if he's fit, is he?
Dacian's injured.
Edmondson.
You go Williams right back,
right.
Edmondson, Twanzebe, and Humphreys, won't you? I would think.
Yeah, I reckon.
Okay. Midfield 2 is Ball and Taylor, is it?
I'd play
Morsey will play, won't he?
Yeah. Otherwise, he doesn't play for 3 weeks. You wouldn't just
give him the month off?
No. McKenna likes to keep them ticking over, though, doesn't he? He likes to keep them going.
Well, he's got a couple of weeks off, isn't he, after that?
So then Jackson, number 9, with Harness, Hutchinson. Someone regular's going to have to start. Maybe Sarmiento will get a game, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get him up to speed. Yeah, exactly that. So if you are
Jay
going,
Stansfield up front,
you'll probably see Jordan Rhodes, unless he's cup tied.
Very nice too. So I think we try not to be dismissive of the FA Cup, Craig, but there is a feeling of not even people who make podcasts about it, but from the fan base generally, it would be nice to have a break, as Seb said, with that extra game in between Boxing Day and New Year's Day, and I'd imagine there's a feeling in the playing squad and around the club similarly.
Yeah, because it's not a free weekend, is it? The 4th round. There's a game that would need to be arranged, that would need to be rearranged and fit somewhere else. So I don't know why I had it in my mind that it was a blank weekend on the assumption that you might get through, sort of thing. But it's not, is it? It's carry on playing. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, it'll be another game, and you know damn well it'll be Preston away in the 4th round, and yeah, there'll be nobody going. It'll be a bit of a damp squib. So yeah, we'll see.
What I will say about that is I think last season, Seb, we did kind of prove with the pattern of play going across the whole squad and the numbers in the squad. When Mick was the manager, you did almost worry even your 1B team, you were knackering players out going to Preston away, like Craig says. But I didn't feel it was a kind of millstone round the neck. What round did we get to last season? Like 6th round or something?
Yeah, was it 5th? Burnley, wasn't it? We lost to in the end, but we gave a really good account of ourselves there as well, didn't we? In the kind of, that was the reserve side.
Luco might play, mightn't he?
He's your number 10. There you go. Yeah, Luco's your number 10, isn't he?
Get him in there. Right, guys, thank you so much. I think we've managed to tackle what is objectively our worst run of the season. It's our worst run of the season, our worst run in our perfect entire of 2023. But the ups and downs will come, and hopefully we're going to be looking back at this little period as something that needed to be gotten through, and we can reset. And as Steven Gerrard famously said before Liverpool didn't win the Premier League, we go again. We go again next week. Craig, last word from you, my darling.
Thank you for watching, everyone. Have a great 2024. And look out for Jacob's 2 videos this week on potential January
Good
signings,
pluggery.
midfield and attack we're looking at.
Good pluggery, Craig. Seb, can you get me a couple of transfer window cliches in, please, to end this thing out?
Bodies, we've got a body joining in the building tomorrow. That'll open up the war chest, and hopefully we'll get a few more across the line before the window slams shut.
Oh, slam shut. That was the one I needed. And let's slam shut the door on this latest episode of the Blue Monday podcast. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And enjoy Wimbledon if you're headed there. No preview show. We'll be back with the flagship on Sunday, at which point I'll probably finally know what day of the week it is.